Nowadays, a lot more games offer a vast selection of difficulty settings. With accessibility options on the rise, it's increasingly common for games to offer a less of a challenge for a more story-focused experience, whilst retaining the higher stake options for the hardcore. But what about those times we unwillingly shoot ourselves in the foot? Those hidden difficulty modes or choices that only make our journeys harder? Sure, you might think something called the Demon Bell is a cute name, but it really isn't for the faint-hearted. Or it's something seemingly innocent, like a binary choice over which starting character to pick. You might think a flame-tailed Pokemon is a great choice, or that the stockiest looking member of Stars is a guaranteed walk in the, mansion, but appearances can be deceiving. Worse yet is when the game tricks you, like reversing its difficulty options because of a programming error. How about when the promise of a free upgrade is too good to be true and makes life much harder for you? Not cool, game. Not cool. It's not always doom and gloom though, as some of these modes can be overcome with a bit of perseverance. Just remember to check beforehand what you're about to get stuck into. I am Kirsten from WhatCulture Gaming, and these are 9 times you accidentally made video games harder. Number 9. Spec Ops Stealth Patrol. Swapped difficulties. Chances are, before the line, you may not have heard of the Spec Ops games. Honestly, no one would blame you, as it was hardly a massive franchise to begin with. Small enough, in fact, that I doubt you'll have noticed when Stealth Patrol came out in 2000. That's not a pun on the title either, it's just that it's not a very good game. However, Private and Sergeant have had their options switched, so you might have picked the former and wondered why you're having such a tough time with the game. Nowadays this would be an easy thing to patch out, but that wasn't available on the PlayStation, nor was the internet so readily to hand for many, so you couldn't do a quick research to see if anyone else was having the same issue. I bet those that went straight for Sergeant difficulty felt like absolute bosses though. Number 8. Resident Evil. Picking Chris over Jill. At the start of the first Resident Evil game, picking from a choice of 2 characters seems like a purely cosmetic one. They're new to us, we haven't yet discovered their origins or strengths, so it seems like a binary choice. Oh, how wrong we were. On paper, Chris Redfield looks like the standard choice. Not out of sexism, just that he looks like he'd be able to handle himself. Yet, unbeknownst to many, picking the bulkier looking member of Stars is actually the game's hard mode. He may take more hits to weaken, but a smaller inventory than Jill, as well as not as many assisted opportunities, leave Chris doing a lot by himself. No easy shotgun, certainly no grenade launcher, as well as plenty of backtracking and item juggling make this more of a challenge. Of course, had he been your first choice, you wouldn't know any better. It's only when you give Jill a chance you begin to notice how much easier her run is. On the plus side, at least he doesn't have to put up with Barry's quips. Number 7. Forza Motorsport / Horizon. Turning ABS off. Admittedly, this won't be anything special if you're a petrol head, but if you're a casual fan of racing games, this one might have bitten you before. ABS, or anti-lock braking system, is pretty literal in its naming. What it means is that instead of your wheels locking when you brake, you have more control. There are various types of ABS, and I may have gleaned the explanation, but that's the general gist. Modern racing sims like Forza and Gran Turismo have a whole host of driving assets you can tweak around with. Forza offers higher experience / influencer points with each turned off assist, essentially creating that risk / reward gameplay. But for the uninitiated, the temptation for that extra 5 to 10% gain for turning ABS off may come as a shock. Lining yourself up for a sweet drift around a corner or breaking into a tight racing line around a hairpin goes right out of the window when your wheels lock up and you careen into a wall. It takes some getting used to if you want the authentic racing experience, but this one's only for the hardcore. Number 6. Fallout Zero Intelligence. Criticism has been aimed at the Fallout series for favouring action over the witty dialogue as the series has evolved, especially with Fallout 4's shorter reply prompts. Yet, ironically, the cleverest of touches in the series comes from playing with little to no intelligence. Playing as a proverbial caveman on day release from your vault, the limited vocabulary and responses from people are hilarious. However, it does come with a catch. Your character literally can't comprehend what is being asked of them, which in a series with a lot of dialogue makes it really hard to progress and or learn what's happening. More often than not, you can eventually muddle your way through a conversation and the quest marker will update with some vague notion of what you're doing. Unlike playing on hardcore, when you're willingly upping the difficulty, a low intelligence run just hinders any sense of accomplishment. Granted, no one would willingly ignore the importance of I in special, or at least you'd hope not. Come for the laughs, get stuck in the challenge of what to do next. Number 5. Undertale, using your real name. Undertale, Toby Fox's surprise indie hit, has no right to be as good as it is. For something so superficially basic, it was so engaging and in-depth that it wasn't a surprise that it raised a few eyebrows and hit some great scores. Calling your unnamed protagonist whatever you want is nothing new, especially in an RPG. Some may have restrictions like naming the protagonist of Chrono Cross after the hero of Chrono Trigger, but not many actually punish you for it. Yet Undertale does. If you try and name your character Frisk before you learn the name through story progression, you won't get off lightly. Enemies become tougher, certain items are changed, and, well, I won't spoil the rest, but it's not as fun as it sounds. But that's what Undertale does if you try and outsmart the game straight away, instead of allowing things to unfold naturally. Or to the more daring of you, think of it this way. This is your I am Spartacus moment, unlocking a hard mode for you. Number 4, Deus Ex Human Revolution, taking the free upgrade. It's often said that the best things in life are free. Free ice cream samples, a free beer when someone messes your order up, the little things that bring momentary joy to us. So how about a free upgrade for your cybernetic hardware, considering you've never asked for this in the first place? If the company responsible for your augmentations is offering a patch to stop anything going a bit screwy, then why not? Well, probably because you don't expect the supposedly good-natured upgrade to come back and bite you in the proverbial, I'd wager. But that's what happens right before a boss fight. Jensen finds out the hard way when Zhao Yunru disables his augs right before a fight with Namir, the guy who initially shot you in the prologue. No cloak, no radar, no typhoon system. It was so out of the blue in a game with already difficult boss fights, pre-director's cut, leaving many players feeling so gullible for falling for something so obvious. Always read the fine print on freebies, I guess is the lesson here. Number 3, Sekiro, Demon Bell. Sekiro is a hard game, which is as redundant as saying cows go moo or that water is wet, but still, this needed a preface. It follows the usual From Software standard of New Game Plus, meaning you keep your stats but enemies scale their levels accordingly. The challenge is always there for those who seek it. Did you also know that you can make the game even harder if you wanted to? I know, an absurd notion, but some people do. Found before the armoured warrior boss, ringing the giant bell burdens you with even tougher enemies, at the promise of more rewards should you survive your battles. Granted, you can remove this affliction with the bell demon in your inventory if you know what you're doing. For those unwitting types, you could end up making an already difficult game much harder than it needs to be. For me, the thought of taking on the Sword Saint whilst afflicted with the sinister burden is enough to give me the cold sweats. Number 2, Pokemon Red/Blue, choosing Charmander. Without getting into the debate about which element is the best, there's no denying there's something inherently cool about dragons and fire. So for many, including myself, picking the dragon with a flame for a tail was a natural choice, even more so if you've seen the badass dragon it eventually evolves into. Given that the starting areas are full with Pokemon burned to a crisp by fire, it all seemed too good to be true. And it is, as you find out the hard way when you get to your first gym. Have you ever tried to burn a stone with a lighter? Imagine that analogy on a larger scale, if you will. For you see, the leader, Brock, uses rock-type Pokemon. In terms of basic science, water and grass have more of a eventual effect on rock than fire does, as is reflected in a roundabout way here. Sure, it's not impossible, but it's a steeper start to your adventure so early on that caught many a player by surprise. Just keep telling yourself those evolutions are worth it. Number 1, Dark Souls, depriving yourself. It may seem like deja vu to point out that Soulsborne games are hard given Sekiro's entry earlier, but this one is a little different. For one, the Demon Bell is something you may chance upon, whereas picking Deprived as your class in Dark Souls is somewhat voluntary. Okay, you'd surely think the name would give the game away, as well as the severely limited starting stats and no bonus item. Surely no one would accidentally make the mistake to make the game harder. Yet, sure enough, it does happen. Some people just don't do their homework. The kind of people that walk the wrong way on escalators, I expect. Or you might have gone in with the mindset that this is already a tough game, so it won't matter what class you pick, which would be a reasonable response, were it not for the game spelling it out for you. But some people will charge on, determined to fight through a disadvantageous start. There's proving a point, and then there's this. And there you are, the 9 times you accidentally made video games harder. But let us know if any of these happened to you down in the comments below. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't already, click that subscribe button as well as the little notification bell to be notified of any new videos coming your way. But for now, I have been Kirsten Ria from WhatCulture Gaming, and I will see you in the next video.